Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer, England.
Okay, and today we are talking about Chloe Zhao's film, Hamnet. If you want our spoiler-free thoughts, that's already on our page with our Hamnet First Thoughts video. You can go check that out on the page. But we are going to be getting into spoilers in this edition of the show. So if you have not seen the movie, this one might not be for you. We have a spoiler-free edition over on the page.
Yeah, there's not, honestly, there's not too many spoilers. And like you said in your review, the trailer is just a summation of the movie, honestly.
Which is my biggest problem with the movie, it's not actually the movie's fault.
No.
It's the studio or whoever's decision it was to cut a trailer that was literally just like what if we showed you a 2-minute long cut of the film?
Yeah.
And it's even like in sequence. The trailer is like
for the most part
for the most part it's like here are the events, here are the story beats of the film.
Yeah.
and
in defense of the trailer editor, myself being a trailer editor as well, this movie, I am okay with it because first of all, the trailer is also very amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very good. It does give you an overview of the movie, but you're also missing the journey that they go on.
Yeah.
Right. Like our job as a trailer editor is to get people interested in the movie, get butts in the seats, right? Like no matter what, sometimes they spoil movies, which is really frustrating. But there's also numbers that show, there's statistics that show people actually sometimes like it when the movie is spoiled, so they know what to expect. So sometimes that's why they do that or whatever. But I mean, this movie, it is the movie as far as plot wise and sequence wise, but you still miss out on that catharsis, that emotional, payoff that happens at the end of the movie. Even though we see what happens, you really don't get the full effect of it unless you watch the movie. So I agree with you. It is unfortunate that they just showed the whole, because I was thinking that too. I was like, this is just the trailer. Like we're just watching the trailer. Like I'm surprised they showed the end on Hamnet, but
I kept thinking that like the movie was going to surprise me narratively in some way and like have a turn that I was like, oh, I didn't think that's what would happen. Like there's a moment, I mean, we're just getting into spoilers and it's all right for us to say this, but there's a bit there. Hamnet has a twin. Hamnet is the child of William Shakespeare and I guess who we would call today Anne Hathaway, his wife, but in the movie, her name is Agnes, which is spelled Agnes. This is kind of a big thing about this movie too. The first thing we see in the film is that because I think a lot of people, when they see the trailer for this, they go, hold on. So you're telling me William Shakespeare had a son named Hamnet, and then he wrote a play called Hamlet? Like, why would he make the shift? And the first thing we see in this movie is that in the Old English, the name Hamnet and Hamlet were used interchangeably, which seems to us weird today, but also like we don't even use the name Hamlet anymore. We don't, that's not a name that we call anyone anymore. And
it's kind of like John and Jack, right?
I thought the exact same thing. Yeah. Like how we go, like, how is John Jack or how is Bill Will? Bill and Will are closer, but there's it's still, you're changing one letter and it's definitely, and that's Hamnet, Hamlet, changing one letter. But there are a lot of things about the Old English. If you read actual first folio texts of Shakespeare's writing, there are a lot of words that you go like, what is that word? And then someone has to explain to you, oh, that word is pronounced like this. And it's just like, this is a bad example because I can't think of one off the top of my head, but it's like apple. Obviously, apple was spelled the same back then, but like you'd see a word that would be spelled not like that. And you'd go, what is that? And they've translated a lot of those words into the modern context. So even though her name is spelled Agnes, it's pronounced Agnes, Anne for short.
And I guess someone commented about this because even her dad referred to her in his will as Agnes, even though her name was Anne Hathaway. So it's just kind of an Old English Hamlet. It's definitely something that you have to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
That like, that's kind of what they assumed or that's what they decided to call her. And this is kind of important to know. Even though we know that William Shakespeare had a son who died when he was 11, they have no idea how he died. They have no idea what he died of. They have no idea if his death is actually connected to the play Hamlet. There's just a lot of inference. But like, so this is kind of like a best guess. Now, that doesn't mean that this isn't like, I think this was great, a great movie, but it's also not factually accurate, even though maybe this is what happened. But
and think about the way that William Shakespeare wrote,
right.
which is he would do sometimes histories. He would write
Mhm.
a play about Henry V, and there would be multiple parts, or King
Right.
Richard, or Julius Caesar, and
Yep.
he's dramatizing events that are loosely based on things that were said to have happened. But
Right.
he's also just he's putting in themes and things that he wants to be
Yes.
relatable to it. It's not necessarily about how
Mhm.
historically accurate is this, because so
Right.
if an audience is if people are wondering, like, well, why tell the story at all if you're just making it up? It's like, well, because it's a story about grief, it's a
Uh-huh.
story about love, it's a story about the power of storytelling. And
Yeah.
I think that this film is an argument for the power of live storytelling,
Yeah.
shared communal experiences with stories. And
Right.
so, whether or not this is literally what happened with William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway and their son Hamnet
Yeah.
is kind of irrelevant, because
Yeah.
we don't even know if William Shakespeare actually wrote these plays. Like, that is still a
Right. Right.
matter of historical contention.
Right.
And so it doesn't really, that's not, like,
Yeah.
I think people kind of go into it going like, did this really happen? And it's like,
Yeah.
most did this movie that you're watching happen exactly the way that Chloe Zhao has written it with this person who wrote the book?
Right.
What's the woman who wrote the book's name?
Maggie O'Farrell, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And it's
Maggie
like,
O'Farrell. Yeah.
most likely not. Like, most likely there is a good amount of artistic license being taken
Oh
with
yeah.
these
Yeah.
with these, but what I was going to say up front is, when watching the trailer, that's what you get. The trailer's like, this is a story of how William Shakespeare
Yeah.
met and fell in love with Anne Hathaway. They had kids, one of them died in their grief, and in his they grieved separate ways, and in his grief he wrote the play Hamlet, and it was a
Yeah.
healing experience for them. You
Yes.
see all of that in the trailer. But
Yes.
I thought for a second there, Hamnet has a twin sister, and I did
Mhm.
not know that.
Yeah.
And when they're born, uh Hamnet he comes out first and he's healthy, and his twin sister comes out second, and
Yes.
appears to be stillborn. And
Mhm.
and the midwives that are helping Jessie Buckley give birth are trying to take the baby away, but she refuses, and she's like, I'm going to stay with my baby. And
Yeah.
then she sort of blesses her with this, like, you will live blessing,
Right.
and that baby lives. And then later on in the film, when the children take ill, it's always been Hamnet's twin sister who's the one who struggles more, and she gets sick first. And I thought for a minute, oh, maybe the thing that the trailer was misleading all of us on is that it's not Hamnet who dies, it's his sister who dies, similar to, like, Hamlet's sister Ophelia,
Mhm.
or not sister
It's
Ophelia,
his,
his
yeah, his love
his
interest.
love interest. Yeah, it's Hamlet's mother, but
Yeah.
but his love interest Ophelia. But maybe it's that, like, like Hamnet, like, this is a story about how William Shakespeare wrote a play for his grieving son, also
Mhm. Mm.
Hamnet, who is, like, trying to deal with, like, understanding death, because
Mhm.
Hamlet in the play is a character who is grieving. He is
Yes.
a character whose father has been killed, and who, like, he is a character who is dealing with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune
Right.
of, all the, so I was like, oh, maybe that's the twist here. And
Yeah.
then no, it turns out it's just what is shown in the trailer. That
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But it's really, I mean, both the trailer's great, but this movie also, man, it really hits you. It hits you in all the right ways.
It packs a punch.
It
It
does. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're open to it, it hits hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, so I said this in my first thoughts, knowing what to expect is going to be helpful, because my parents saw it and they didn't love it until the end of the
Mm.
film. Like once Hamnet becomes ill, That seems to be when they picked it up, because this is the thing, like, this movie is not, it's not really mainstream. It's not mainstream, but it's very Chloe Zhao is very, emotionally driven, especially for this film. Like, it follows a pattern and it follows their lives, but it's not one beat after the other. It just kind of like follows the emotions of the character. So the first, when it opens really with Shakespeare and Anya's meeting, and like having a kind of a strange meeting, and then like the first hour, or like even longer than an hour, is their whole relationship,
Mhm.
which I was surprised by. Like, oh, this is taking a long time, even just to get to the kids.
Right.
But I liked that because it's setting up who these characters are, right? Like, Anya's is really, her mother had died, we find out, and she's kind of like I liked this throughout the whole part of the movie, but everybody calls her a witch.
Mhm.
But she's very connected to nature, and she's kind of like a healer. She
Yeah, the
needs
first shot of the film is her lying by herself
Yeah.
in the woods next to this cave. And it's also the first shot of the
Oh, the
trailer,
trailer, yeah.
which again, it's like the trailer is literally like
Yeah, yeah,
but and I it's like I want to make it clear I'm not judging this film because the trailer was too
yeah,
close
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a good movie. And
Right.
it's just one of those things where I'm like, man, I wish there was a way to cut it, because I agree with you also that the trailer was very effective and made me
Yeah,
want to see the
yeah,
movie. So it did what it needed to do, but it's like I wish there was a way to cut this trailer that allowed me to have an
yeah,
experience with the
yeah,
film
yeah,
that was but there was a little more like that caught me off guard a little bit
yeah,
more, that
yeah.
left a little yeah.
Totally valid.
But yeah, I like that too. I love that both William and Agnes are sort of outcasts, or like in their own regard, that
Mhm,
William is kind of seen as a guy, like the man's responsibility is to figure out how are you going to be a provider and how are you going to be
mhm.
like, like I also kind of like this idea that like his father is wearing this like ruffled collar that he's so often pictured in it, and which seems so aristocratic, seems
Yeah.
so like buttoned up, but Shakespeare wears this sort of unbuttoned tunic and he's much more of a free spirit.
Mhm.
And his father looks more like the portraits of William Shakespeare
Yeah.
than he ever does at any point in the movie.
Mhm.
Um, and he's sort of a disappointment to his dad because he wants to write poetry and wants to write,
Yeah.
and I
When
think that
he's working off his dad's debts, which I
right,
found interesting too, yeah.
by teaching Latin.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I did like their courtship. I also wanted to like what you talked about with Chloe Zhao being a very emotional director.
Mhm.
This is like an opinion that I have, a hot take, if you will, that gets me into a lot of trouble with people is that anytime I've said this on my channels, like in any video, I've mentioned this several times over the years, but like I kind of think personally that the take that William Shakespeare is just the greatest writer of all time and no one's ever going to do it better, and that's it. That's the end all being. That's the end all be all of writing.
Yeah.
I find kind of tedious and dishonest. I think even the people who say that, I'm like, I don't believe you. Like I think of that, even the companies in the world that produce the most Shakespeare, that are like constantly doing Shakespeare, they usually redact like at least a third of the script when they produce these pieces.
Mm,
Like they literally go through and edit them heavily because they're like, okay,
mm.
if we're going to present this to a modern audience, it's like
Yeah.
a 5 hour script, and we need to find a 2 to 2.5 hour cut, if
Right.
not a 90-minute cut. And I'm
Right.
just kind of like, guys, there's a reason why they do that. And it's because
Mhm.
at the time, writing didn't really have like our what's one of the biggest writing rules in modern screenplay writing, if you had to
Show
say?
show, don't tell.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
And that didn't really exist when
No.
the only piece of
No.
entertainment available was to go watch players do a story in the Globe Theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
When there wasn't TV, when there wasn't
Yeah,
TikTok, when
yeah,
there was,
yeah.
when like so people were down to stand and watch 5 hours of a drama, and it
Yeah.
was almost more like you were listening to actors recite prose, like they were
Yeah.
reading a
Yeah.
book to you, than
Yeah.
it was like watching a movie or watching a TV show.
Yeah.
And that's why like every character in a Shakespeare play, when they feel some kind of way about something that happens, they
Yeah.
turn to the audience and they do a 3-page speech
Yeah.
about how they're feeling. And
Yeah.
then they tell you what they're going to do next based on how they're feeling. Then
Yeah.
they go do it. And then they turn to the audience and tell you how they feel about the thing
Yeah.
they just told you they were going to do.
Yeah.
And it's like none of that exists in modern writing. We try to
Nope.
communicate all of that through almost no dial as little dialogue as possible.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a screenplay that like is the antithesis of the way Shakespeare wrote. It's like
Yes.
as little speaking as possible.
Yeah.
You know, there's very little it's very light. I mean, even when Anius and Will first meet, he like walks up to her,
Yeah.
asks her her name. She says, "I'm not going to tell you." They have this like nonverbal exchange where they're
Yeah.
just sort of looking into each other's eyes and flirting
Yeah.
without
Well,
really saying much, and then they kiss.
yeah. Well, and he's like, you'll tell me after I kiss you, right?
Yeah,
Like that's,
right.
and then they do. And I was like, wow, this is weird. But it was a great scene. But yeah, and I'm really glad that you say that. Cause here's the thing, like, I really have not liked Shakespeare for a long time.
Mhm.
I got kicked out of class one time at Albion because I was like, the teacher was like, "Oh, we're gonna have Shakespeare." And I was like, "Oh," and she was fed up. She's like, "Get out now." So I had to go out of class, and I was like, "Oh, sorry." But lately, like, so I went and saw Hamnet, and I started watching some Hamlets. Like, started watching the Mel Gibson version. I read up on Hamlet just because I really haven't looked into Shakespeare. Now, you can't. Shakespeare is obviously amazing. You can't say that he's not good at what he does. But I agree, it's very hard. It's very hard because it's so different than what it is now. It's exactly opposite as it is now. It's like, no, don't. You shouldn't say how you feel. Like if you're writing a screenplay, you shouldn't say how the character feels. That's just bad writing.
A
But that's
character
what
never just
Shakespeare.
looks at the audience and goes, "I'm really upset about this,
Yeah,
and I don't know how to
yeah,
cope with it. What should I do? Should
yeah,
I kill the person who made me upset, or should I kill myself
yeah.
because I'm so drowned?" It's like that
Exactly.
it just doesn't happen. That
No.
yeah,
And so like so the way that but that's kind of how it was back then. So
right.
you have to respect how he did things, but he's so long-winded. Like but it's more like it's more that's the style. It's like look how well I can write this prose and how eloquently I can express how I'm feeling, which is really hard for me to connect to because I'm a very simple person. So like when Hamlet is speaking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to use so much brain power just to understand what he's saying. And that's good for Shakespeare, but it's really not how things are done now.
Well, and listen, I that's what I mean when I just say
Yeah, yeah,
like I think the impressive thing about Shakespeare is how well it holds up 400 years later.
yes,
How is seeing all of these turns every once in a while you'll be reading Shakespeare or seeing a Shakespeare play and they'll say like a turn of phrase that you're like that turn of phrase existed 400 years ago, and
yeah,
then you'll look it up and realize like he invented that turn of phrase, and
yeah,
you're like that's crazy that like
yeah,
the first time anyone said that was in this play
yeah,
apparently,
yeah,
and like the or at least he's known for popularizing that
yeah,
turn of phrase, and
mhm,
that happens a lot. And so it's not that it's so don't get me wrong, it's not that Shakespeare's not impressive,
right,
it's not that the language doesn't have moments that are beautiful and that echo through time and themes that
yes,
that haven't that have managed to remain relevant for a very
mhm,
long time. It's not that, it's just that like I think if most people are being honest, the
yeah,
best Shakespeare they've ever seen in their lives, like if they saw like an amazing production of King Lear at the Royal
yeah,
Shakespearean Company or an amazing production of As You Like It or something,
mhm,
the best productions they've ever seen in their lives were good because they could understand like 60% of it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the actors were like the best actors in the world.
yeah,
And even then it's like, I bet if you had your choice between watching that for the rest of your life or watching like an Aaron Sorkin
yeah,
show, you'd
yeah,
choose an Aaron Sorkin. Like
I
you'd
agree, yeah,
you know, just
yeah,
because modern writers are going to write your specific experience as a child of the 20th or 21st century
Yeah.
much more accurately.
Yeah.
And they're going to, I just like, because of the advent of cinema and the close up and the ability to be quiet and the
Yeah.
ability to say a lot with visual imagery,
Yes.
we've just developed different modes of communicating these things, and
Yep.
we don't need a character to go on a 5-minute long speech to
Mhm.
explain what we can see it in a look, and
Yep.
you see that in that's the
Yes.
interesting thing about this
Yes.
film is, like, most of it is communicated through facial expression
Yeah.
and,
It's very much show don't tell.
yeah,
And Chloe Zhao does an amazing job of that because it is all, and she's also not, she's leaving everything up to interpretation,
yeah,
which I think is hard for a lot of people, which I understand, but like she'll have a scene and it's like that's an odd scene. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Like when Shakespeare is leaving back to London after Hamnet has died, he Agnes and Agnes is really mad at him, and so he holds her and she gets really mad and then she kind of stops for a second and then she gets up and she's like, just leave, just go. And I was like, okay, I'm not exactly sure how I should have taken that scene. Like if it was a more mainstream movie, she would have cried, they would have had a moment, and they would have come to some sort of resolve. But then in this movie, it's kind of left up to you, which I actually appreciate because it's emotional, it's just kind of leaving it up for everybody. So this is all very much like your hand is not held through this movie.
yeah, some of these emotional beats, like you're saying,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of them,
Yeah.
feel like Chloe Zhao allowed her actors to just sort of
Yep.
feel their way through these moments,
Yeah.
and then they edited together sort of the pieces that worked best, and
Yes.
then it's kind of just a collection of vignettes that, again, we are taken through
Hmm.
a a linear
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's linear,
Hmm.
but we are just kind of shown these moments that aren't necessarily connected through dialogue. They're
Yeah.
connected, like you said, through the emotional through line, which is very, I think, which you can really connect to, but it also leads to my other nitpicky criticism
Yeah.
of this film that I talked about in my spoiler-free thing, which is at times, because Chloe Zhao is just allowing her actors to just feel their way through these moments, at times it can feel a little bit, to me at least,
Yeah.
emotionally indulgent or
Hmm.
or like insistent on the importance and like sometimes it just felt like like actors are like, because I'll tell you, you give an actor a chance to like just really emote
Oh yeah.
and they're like chomping at the bit to go like, oh, let me sink my teeth into this,
Yeah.
and sometimes there needs to be restraint, but this felt like a film where Chloe Zhao was like, I want you guys to just let it all out. I
Yeah.
want it
Yeah. Yeah.
big, and and I really was impressed by what Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley were able
Yeah.
to do here, but I
Yeah.
would just say sometimes it felt like, because this movie is so dialogue light, it's really light on dialogue, and it's so emotionally driven, it just felt like one really heavy emotional vignette after another,
Yeah.
and it felt like sometimes we were just kind of languishing in that feeling, which I know is also kind of the point of the film.
Right.
But yeah, it felt a little maybe indulgent, possibly even manipulative, of
Right.
like shaking the audience and being like, "Feel, feel," you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think the parts that it didn't work for me, because I see what you're saying. The parts that didn't really work for me in that respect is when Shakespeare started quoting Shakespeare,
yeah.
and like he's like, to be or not to be, that is the question. And Shakespeare almost seems like he really is about to commit suicide, and he recites that part of Hamlet, and I'm like, I don't know if this works for me because it feels too indulgent. It also feels like this is where and I'm like, did
So
he just come
Olivia,
up with it? Like I didn't love that, but maybe some people have different takes. But what did Olivia think?
she had that same exact thought in that
Yeah.
same exact moment, because it's that biopic trope where,
Yeah.
like, a person comes up with a very famous song,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
but the song rolls out of them fully formed, and you're like,
Yes.
"That's not how writing goes."
Right, right.
Like, you know, like, one of my favorite examples, I didn't even see this movie, but it made me laugh just from the trailer. The trailer for Respect, the Aretha Franklin
Yeah.
movie, had had this part, just in the trailer where, Aretha Franklin's, like, sitting at the piano, and she's kinda like, Respect, tell me what it means to me. And then one of her friends comes over and goes, "Wow, that's really good, Ree." And then she goes, "Ree, Ree, 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 Ree." And I was like, "No, no." I was like, "No, that's not how that happened. That's not
Right, right,
like,
right.
that is not like calling her like Ree as short for Aretha and then being like, wait,
Yeah.
yeah, and then say that." I just was like, that is not how that song was written. But so Olivia was kind of like,
Yeah.
there's no way he just spoke the entire "To Be or Not to Be"
Right,
monologue,
right.
and that's how it was written. But my read was more like what you're saying, which is the script was already written. He
Yeah.
was already in rehearsals for Hamlet,
Mhm.
and he was deeply grieving the loss of his son, and he went to the doc and he recited that
Yeah, yeah,
thing that he had already written, that
yeah,
he already knew by
yeah,
heart. And so, but I still get what you're saying, that like
yeah,
it is like, it's one of those moments where it's like, I know that you guys want to bring the text into the
yeah,
movie somehow, and
yeah,
but it feels like one of those biopic moments where you're just kind
yeah,
of like, this feels like a
yeah,
stretch.
and
Yeah.
he does that a couple times,
Mhm.
and it just didn't work for me, just like, "Oh, okay." But these are I see your nitpick, I think this is a nitpick for me as well, just
Well, and even like, even the moment where his kids, who, by the way, we need to talk about the kids in this movie at some point. I think
yeah,
the next thing we
me
should
too.
talk about is just performances.
Yeah,
But
let's do that, yeah.
but there's a moment where the kids do the witch scene from Macbeth, and
Yes, yeah.
and it's really cute, but they have it word perfect, and I'm like, would his kids know the exact text? Would they have every line memorized? And especially if, like, these kids never go to London to watch the plays. Like, when
Yeah,
did they?
yeah.
Because like, I know that, like, you have kids that watch the same movie over and over and over
Oh,
again,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's like, even when you know the movie really well, do you know it word perfect? And the fact that his kids are able to do that entire scene word perfect, I'm like, maybe they do like an approximation of the scene.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
but like, they know it well enough. But the fact that the movie's like, well, we have to do this text
yeah,
perfectly.
yeah,
But that is an adorable scene. And yeah, I think we should talk about
yeah,
these kids, these
yeah.
performances. I want to ask you something. So,
'Kay.
um, what's his name? That played Jacoby Jupe,
Jacoby Jupe, yeah.
who is just fantastic in this
I was
movie.
blown away, dude. He was amazing.
Did this kid remind you of your boys at all?
Yeah. I mean, a little bit more of Harrison 'cause, my son, he's more blonde-haired,
Yeah.
and he's a little bit younger than, yeah, my older, but, yeah, he kinda reminded me of my son, yeah.
I was thinking, when I was looking at that, I was like, I bet, because you've got these little
Yeah,
blonde boys,
yeah.
and I just was like, I bet Kramer's gonna watch this and go like, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
my boy." Like,
Yeah, it got me there, yeah.
yeah, and he's such a cute. I mean, he's so
Oh,
cute,
yeah.
but also his performance is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
His and
Just especially what he had to do. Like, he
oh,
had to he had to quote Shakespeare for a little bit, right? But then he has to, like, have this whole relationship with his sister that
mhm,
nobody else has because they're twins,
mhm,
and then he has to pretend to die,
mhm.
right? Like, which is like, and I believed it. Like, I was like, wow, it wasn't over the top like some kids could get into. And then he has to kind of work his way through the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
And I was totally blown away by this kid.
Yeah, me too, and the other kids were great too. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
everyone's doing fantastic work here. Obviously, though, the big talk is about Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley,
yeah,
particularly Jessie Buckley. And do you
yeah.
think that there's anybody in your mind that would beat her right now for
Best
the
actress.
best? Yeah.
Ooh, no. I mean, I'd have to look back and see, but I mean, this is she was pretty amazing. I mean, I think she would win it right now if I were to bet.
I just, again, I talked a little bit about how sometimes because of the way Zhao has constructed this film, because of the way that she shot it, where she was letting Buckley and
Mhm.
Mescal sort of feel their way through these moments, not necessarily sticking to the script, but just
Yeah, yeah.
going with what comes up. It can feel a little indulgent, but also
Yeah.
just I look at the enormity of what Buckley was doing because it's not just the grief sequences.
Yeah.
There are like two different giving birth sequences from Jessie
Oh,
Buckley
ugh.
that are just brutal. Like it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
her performance in both of them it's just like it's crazy. But then also her grief, her reaction when Hamnet dies in her arms
Yeah.
was heartbreaking.
It was, yeah. Yeah, it was, she did a great job, and I guess this, I could be wrong, but I think I read something where it said this she'd been thinking about having kids in her own life, and this role really convinced her to have kids, which I thought was great because it felt like she had kids, right? Like, sometimes you could tell when actors are trying to act in a situation that maybe they haven't experienced. Not that they can't do well. I mean, that's what actors do. You have to put yourself in the mind. But I felt like she was, genuinely was a mother, and she will be. So she did a great job, and she did a really great job overall with her kids, with the relationship between her and Paul Mescal. And I think the thing that I really really liked about her performance as well is this kind of foresight that she has. um they play with this throughout the movie, right? Like they're um she says something for, oh well, when she's having her kids and she's about to have her second one, you know, William is like, "Oh, it's two, right? You're gonna have two." She's like, "Yeah, on my deathbed, there's gonna be two kids with me."
Mhm.
Just as like that's what I feel. And then she has three, so then she's worried. The whole movie, or not the whole movie, she's worried after that point that the daughter is going to die.
Because
And
she's also seen Hamnet grown up which
yes,
is this other thing that was
yes,
really beautiful. Because
yes,
she assumes it's the daughter because she's already seen a vision of Hamnet grown
yeah,
up on stage,
yeah,
which comes back in a
yeah.
really beautiful form,
Oh,
which
absolutely.
I think it was one of the, like, the most emotionally sort of,
Yeah,
like, gut punches of the film is
it was.
understanding that the first time she sees, Noah Jupe is
Yeah.
Jacoby Jupe Noah Jupe's little brother?
Yes, which
That's
I really liked that they did that
yeah,
because of the familial connection, and
yeah,
because they're setting up that, oh, she thought she saw Hamlet on stage,
she
but she
saw it.
saw this actor who in real life are brothers. So I like that little connection that they had. I thought that
Yeah,
was because, yeah, she sees him on stage and she has this like thing. But the thing that I found amazing is like that stuff happens.
yeah,
So like Mitch and Riley. So
mhm,
I have identical twin brothers, my brothers who are identical twins,
mhm,
and one of them died when he was 21. And my mother always had a feeling her whole life, at right when she had my brothers, that one of them wouldn't make it that long.
mhm,
Like, and she had this feeling her whole life that one of my twins isn't going to make it. She just didn't know. She just had that feeling. And I think she kind of always, I don't know how she felt about all that, but she had that thought, and she's had that. And then, my brother died when he was 21 in a car accident, and she kind of just knew that it was going to happen. It's like sometimes you just see there's this mother's intuition that is very 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 real.
mhm,
And I thought they portrayed that really well in this movie because, and they did it that way, right?
yeah,
They had her talk about it. And even with my wife, like, and I've had this a little bit, she's had it way more, but we have a daughter who has type 1 diabetes, and we just kind of have always thought like she's always been scared about it. Our three older kids, we were always worried, like, we got to go get them checked out. They're drinking a lot, or like there are certain signs that you can look for. And then with our youngest daughter, we caught it early because we've always been worried about it. And my wife,
drinking water a lot.
well, really thirsty or peeing a lot, like
Oh,
those
sure. Just
those are
I
things.
was in my
Yeah.
stupid head, I was just thinking like, "Man, our 11-year-old sure is drinking a lot.
Yeah,
He's really hitting the sauce. He's really
yeah, right.
we
Drinking
gotta
a
check
lot of
this."
water. Sorry, yeah. But yeah, diabetes, that's one of the signs, right?
Yeah,
You
it is,
you
yeah.
you have to drink a lot and you have to pee a lot, and we
Mhm,
saw that. Took her in, and my wife, once she found out, she felt like she has diabetes, but everything will be okay. right?
Mhm.
And we kind of always have felt that. So there's this mother's intuition that parents can have, right? And
Yeah.
it just, the way that they portrayed it wasn't so over the top. It felt very natural, and it was something that I could relate to with my mom and with my wife, having things like that. So I thought the way that they portray that, I loved it because it felt so good for the story. And she does, like in the middle of the movie, she says, "Oh, I see you." You know, she touches him right here or wherever,
Uh-huh.
and she can see, and she touches Hamnet's hand, and she's like, "I see you on stage with your father." And when she said that, I was like, "Oh, wow. She's gonna see Noah Jew." Like, it worked really
I
well.
didn't even make that
Oh, you
connection,
didn't?
and
Okay.
I'm glad I didn't, because then
That's
when
good.
that moment but then also but even realizing it in that moment, like, "Oh, that's oh, th"
Yeah.
but I was, yeah,
Yeah.
I like that aspect too. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up, and
Yeah.
you're right that and and at the time, it's like anyone who expresses anything like that, it's like, "Well, oh, well, you're a witch.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got weird powers," even though it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
this connection. Yeah, I've had that my whole life. My mom knows when I'm not doing well, when I'm
My mom does too. It's
yeah,
crazy. She'll
yeah,
call
that
me. I felt like I needed to call you. I'm like, "Wow. Oh, yeah. I mean, I gotta talk to you about this," you
yeah,
know?
the timing's always right on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So crazy. So crazy.
crazy.
And
That
it
connect yeah.
and it's a thing that you can't explain. It's a spiritual thing, and you don't
Mhm.
have to be a mother. Some people just have it. Like, there's a connection between people, and some people are able to tap into that. And I think mothers, just with their own kids, are really able to tap into that, as we're talking about. So I thought the way they portrayed it was awesome, and it felt very natural. It didn't feel like they overdid it. Sometimes you can really like do it too much to make it feel like,
Sure.
no, that doesn't happen. Like, to make them feel almost like they're supernatural, but really it's a very natural thing for a
Mhm.
lot of people. So
Yeah. As far as, Mescal's performance
yeah.
as Shakespeare, I I liked how simple
Yes.
I don't think he tried to, because again, I think this whole thing with William Shakespeare that we talked about with the text and with the
Yep.
writing, it almost has, like, this religious,
Yeah.
like you talked about getting kicked out of class for scoffing at the
Right.
idea
Right.
of having, that, like, there is almost this sacred
Yeah.
regard for, like, how dare you besmirch the
Yeah.
name of William Shakespeare. And I like that Mescal approaches the role not with this, like, I'm playing one of the most important humans.
Yeah.
He just he's just a guy,
Yeah.
and I just felt like he played him with just the soul of, like, any artist, just
Yep.
a person who has this drive to create and to write. And I, I don't know. I had an interesting experience watching this film because um when you're watching a movie that you're really emotionally invested in, but you can
Yeah.
tell the person next to you is not as emotionally invested as you are, and then
Right.
you feel weird for like,
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
like, "Am I wrong?" Or you feel like
Yeah.
self-conscious. I could tell that Olivia was like I cried several times in the movie,
Right.
and
Right.
I could tell that she was just like not having the same experience. So I
Very
asked her
yes.
about that afterward. I was like, "Well, what? Like, did you find?" She goes, "I don't know." She's like, "I just didn't really like connect with." She's like, I just related to Jesse Buckley's anger at him because she's mad at him. He misses a lot
Interesting. Yes. Yes.
because as people know, they lived in Stratford on Avon. They lived, which is, quite a ways
Mhm.
away from London, but Shakespeare worked in London. One of the only places that you could go to be a successful
Right.
playwright or person, a thespian, a theater
Yeah.
artist,
Yeah.
was London. But they didn't want to raise their kids in London because at the time it was a really hard place to,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the mortality rate for children went up
Yeah.
significant. It was already high, and it
Yep.
goes up significantly, like in a place that's like the hub of the plague.
Mhm.
It just overcrowded, and their kids had a much better chance of being safe in the country. But that meant that to commute, and he had to have two places where he lived. He had to have,
Mhm.
and he had to spend significant amounts of time away from his family. And Olivia's take was she was just kind of like, I agree with Jesse Buckley. Like, he should have been there. He should be with his family. And to me, it's like the
Right.
modern equivalent of being married to like a SoundCloud cloud rapper that's just like, but my band, babe, like I gotta be with like my music
Yeah,
career. And
yeah.
it's like, and I just was kind of like, I get that. I get that. I get
Yeah.
how like a woman could look at that and just go like, hey, if you're gonna be a dad, that should be your priority.
Right.
But I also look at it and go, at the time, no matter what profession you were choosing, as a man, to take care of your family, there was a likelihood that work would take you, that it just was the nature
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
world that, like, let's say that like I just watched the movie Train Dreams on Netflix,
Mm,
and
nice.
that's a movie about a guy who is a logger, and the way he supports his family is he has to go into the woods for months at a time and cut down timber, and like
Mhm.
it means that he was a frontiersman, in
Yeah.
the early American West, and there was a long time in human history where like people didn't have the luxury necessarily of being able to be have their job
Right.
be located where their family is. And even now, when people have a job that has them traveling, they're usually traveling by plane and like they fly out to wherever they need to do work and they're gone for like maybe 2 days and they come
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And but we it still exists. It's like I'm still in a profession as an actor where I have a lot of friends who have families, who have kids, who like they've often got to leave for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks at a time to
Mhm.
go film a movie,
Yeah.
or 6 weeks at a time to go do a play. And it's just part of the nature of like I it's still
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't look at it and go like everyone that I know who's a professional actor who has to be away from their family for a few months at a time for work. I don't look at them as like deadbeats
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
I just think it's like I just think it's the nature of the job. And I do think that like the what's being expressed there in the story is like this is a character because initially Anya supports it. She's like,
She does, yeah.
he needs to go to London. He needs to
She's the
do,
one who tells him, right? Like, "You gotta
yeah,
go." Yeah.
yeah. And then she winds up resenting it because he misses out on a lot.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing. And I think that what we're ultimately seeing is a story of how when something terrible like this happens in a family unit, the parents can grieve in very different ways and
Yes.
be on different pages with
Yeah.
their, and that's what's happening. But he sort of writes this play, at least in this story, he writes it as a way of trying to communicate to her, like, I'm feeling the same things you're feeling. I'm going
Right.
through, and I just liked how human Paul Mescal's performance
Yeah.
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
I loved that. I think I like that the most, as far as because I agree with you, like, if you're portraying Shakespeare, you might portray him as very eloquent and very wordy and, like, he's so smart and it just comes out of his, it just happens. His art just happened. But Paul Mescal portrays him as someone who doubts himself, right? And I find that so much more realistic. Like, everything that an artist does, there are very few artists who never doubt what they're doing, like, who it just flows out of them. Like, they'll write, they'll rewrite, they'll critique themselves, they'll kind of feel like, be so insecure. Like, I think you as an artist and me as an artist feel that way. And I loved that they had him, kind of like, you never hear what he's writing really. Like, he's just working on it, and he's like, you can tell that he's struggling with it. And I really loved that they did that because it made him so much more relatable. And it just made him more human to relate with the other characters. Like, when he does have to go, like, exactly what you're saying, like, we all grieve in different ways. And for this movie, the way that he grieved was to write, and he had to get back to London to actually grieve. So I see that, but also I love, because I think she is. So Agnes is really mad at William when he goes back to London. But then when she does see the play, when she sees Hamlet, it's almost like her, oh, this is what you were doing. Like, this is how you were grieving. Right. So the end is so wrapped up so well just by looks of, just like, okay, this is how you were able to handle this. And I thought it was great. Like, I understand why people would be mad at him for leaving, but you never know, that's just kind of how things were.
Yeah, and let's talk about this ending really quick
Yeah.
before we get into our scores, because I do think that this is, I mean, it's just an enormously beautiful sequence,
Oh yeah.
and it really it's I think that they do a really good job structurally here of
Yeah.
making the emotional climax of the film the ending and not overstaying the welcome and just letting it be that.
Yes.
But, and you see this in the trailer, but
Yeah.
what happens is, as they're grieving in their different ways and as William is not really there and Agnes feels increasingly, it's just like we see that like a year has gone by and
Yeah.
she's completely despondent, and it's just like she's not ever going to get over the loss of her son.
Mhm.
And she finds out through someone else, not even through Will, that he's written this play, The Tragedy of Hamlet. And she goes to London out of curiosity, almost to see like almost half angry. Like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you've written
I
a
agree.
play about my son and it's not, and it, like if you like first of all, like I don't even know if I like the idea that you're sharing this with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And second, so she and her brother, for the first time, it seems, go to the Globe Theater to actually watch one
Yeah.
of his plays.
Yeah.
And it's also the first time in the movie that we hear his name out loud. They don't say the
Oh.
name William Shakespeare the entire
Oh,
film.
I didn't even notice that. That's great.
They
Yeah.
don't even say Will. They don't even say his name the
Yeah.
entire movie.
Yeah.
And then this little boy pokes his head out the window and goes, like, "Who are you looking for?" And they
Yeah.
go, "William Shakespeare." And it's the first time in the film that his name is said out loud. And they
Yeah.
wind up going to see this play. And I really liked, I mean, this is the shirt I wore for this episode.
Ah, nice.
This is Salt Lake Acting Company. It's a theater that I spent a lot of time at in my 20s.
Mhm.
I acted in like 17 shows there in my
Nice.
20s. And then
Yeah.
I'm now a writer at that theater. I write their summer show every year with a couple other writers. And like I am a lifelong thespian. I am a
Yes.
lifelong theater
Yeah.
artist, and I mean, it was really cool to see this experience of like her getting to see a show in the Globe Theater with these actors. And initially she, like, when she first starts hearing people say Hamlet, and
Yeah.
and they're not talking about, it doesn't seem like they're like the beginning of the opening of the play Hamlet is like these guards talking about how they saw a ghost and stuff,
Mhm.
and she's like upset. She's like, what does any of this have to do with my
Yeah.
son?
Yeah.
Get my son's name out of your mouth. And she starts pushing through the crowd to be like, don't talk about my son, and to yell at the actors, which also, like, this was also like sort of a thing in Shakespeare's time, is people would talk back and forth they would yell at the stage. They would, like,
Yeah.
everyone's seen the thing of like people throwing cabbages or throwing tomatoes,
Yeah.
this, like, before movies existed, before TV existed, seeing a live show was a totally different experience.
Yeah.
But it was like one that like was kind of unparalleled. Like it was the height of of what storytelling could be. Um, but yeah, it's like once she sees Noah Jupe come out on stage with his
Yeah.
colored blonde hair, they've like sort of
Yeah.
artificially colored his hair blonde.
Yep.
The whole play changes for her, and she has this like transcendent spiritual experience where she gets to see her boy alive again on
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
And Will just sort of watches from the wings and watches her experience with this.
Well, and he comes out because he's the father,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And he has this whole conversation and yeah, once she changes, because you could tell she's angry, and then she just like stops. Which again, she's not holding your hand. Chloe Zhao isn't holding your hand through this sequence. It all plays out on Jesse Buckley's face,
Mhm.
which is what is so amazing because you can tell when she's angry, then you can tell when she starts to realize what all of this means, and kind of what it means for her and what it means for William and what it means for their family, and she just all of a sudden just becomes enthralled in this play like the
Mhm.
whole time and then Shakespeare is playing the father. He's playing Hamlet's ghost,
Mhm.
and he has this thing, and then she's like, "Look at me," right? She says in the crowd, "Look at me," and he turns around and he looks at her, and that exchange as well, just like was also just amazing because after that, I think William goes in the back, and
Yeah.
that's when he has his breakdown because she starts to understand this is how you're dealing with it.
Mhm.
And so he goes and he has his moment in the back where he just starts crying,
Mhm.
which was awesome. But then he's able to go back and he sees the end of the play. He's watching her. He's watching Agnes watching the play. And so I did a Wonder Funner on this, but apparently they didn't know how to end this movie
Mm.
the last week of filming. So
Mm.
they filmed this last and they filmed the first day and it just did how it was scripted and it just didn't work. And Chloe Zhao was like, crap, we don't have a movie. Like, and Jesse Buckley too was like, this isn't working. And then Jesse Buckley sent Chloe Zhao a song from the composer. And
Henry,
yeah,
what is, I can't remember.
I should
because
know his name.
because I associate, I love this piece of music, but
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always thought this was just the original score to the movie Arrival because that's where I
I
know it
know.
from.
Yeah.
So when it first started playing, I was like, "Are you allowed to do that?" Like
Yeah.
Tim Robinson style. Like I don't think they're allowed to do that. You
Yeah.
know, because I just was like, "This is but
Yeah.
then I looked it up and it's like, "Oh no, this is the composer."
Yeah.
Who I think is like
It's
Henry
Max
Miller,
Max
Max
Richter.
Max Richter. I'm totally wrong.
No, you're
Max
good.
Richter uh,
Yeah.
composed this piece separately, independently of
Yeah.
either film, and I guess just was willing to just use it for
Yeah,
what.
so yeah, so Jessie Buckley heard it's called This Bitter Earth, which is Max Richter's song on the nature of daylight, which he wrote, I think, just as a standalone piece, and it's been used in like dozens of movies because it is it's very effective, right? And
I associate it with Arrival, like
yeah, Arrival is that's
yeah.
probably the most famous recently for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and she said, and then This Bitter Earth is just uh Dina Washington's lyrics from another song. Anyway, so Chloe Zhao was in her car and then she realized like, oh, it needs to be about touch, right? She needs to be letting go. So she came up with it. So there was 4 days left of filming and they figured it out, which is insane to me, which I think is awesome. But
But what's interesting to me though in that moment though is that in Chloe's that it's about touch and about letting go.
yeah,
They're really focused on the act on the story, on like
yeah,
what does Agnes need in order to move
right,
on in order for but
right.
what I see in the macro is like a moment where with Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers and with that
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels like there's like this assault on the live experience on the
Right.
communal experience of because what I experienced in my theater, even though my girlfriend was next to me, not crying as heavily as I was crying, I could hear the chorus of sniffles
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
cries, and I'm having this communal experience with the audience around me.
Yes.
And what happens is Jessie Buckley, as the grieving mother, so Hamlet's dying. Everybody dies at the end of Hamlet. Spoiler alert: everybody dies famously.
Yeah.
And Hamlet gives this speech about how he's dying because that's what people do in Shakespeare plays. They don't just
Yes.
die; they have to give a big.
Yeah.
But as he's doing it, Agnes reaches out to him
Yeah.
and he takes her hand. But when she does that, the rest of the audience goes,
Yeah.
Us too. And
Yes.
they all reach out. And so you've
Oh,
got like several hundred people reaching out. And I'm sitting there in a movie theater going, 400 years later, we're still doing this.
yeah.
Like collectively, we all sit and watch a story.
Yeah.
And in the moment of the emotional climax, we're all together crying and
Yeah.
sniffing and
Yeah.
collective, like spiritually holding each other's hands through this moment.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I don't know. I doubt that this was part of the conversation for Chloe Zhao and her.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it was
Yeah.
more likely what you're talking about, that they wanted an emotional
Yeah.
resolution for the characters and for the story. But there is this macro narrative
Yeah.
of like, or this meta narrative of like, this is what we lose if we
Yeah.
give up
Right.
the
Theater
community experience.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
you know,
community experience. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally, I agree with you. I'm sure that was not on their mind when they were making it, but that is something like, and when I was watching this movie, that was in my mind. Like
Mhm,
I could not get this community experience anywhere else.
mhm.
I went alone and I was sitting, with a bunch of different people who I don't know, and we're all crying,
Yeah,
and I hear the sniffles too, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad everybody else is crying when I'm crying,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
because there were 3 or 4 or 5 times when I was just crying, like, wow,
Mhm.
just because of the way that it was performed. But you don't get that. Like you get that shared experience in a theater, and I love that in this movie. The ending is just her touching him, and then everybody else doing the same. They've all been emotionally affected by this, and that's something you can't get anywhere else, right?
Well, and
Like,
I like how Noah Jupe is also caught off guard
yeah.
by
Oh, I
it.
love that. Yeah,
And these moments happen. Like you talked about,
yeah,
like with your parents that are like this,
yeah,
like
yeah,
as an actor,
yeah,
these moments happen where you realize that the audience is with you.
yeah.
Like that you're like having an experience and
Yes.
then you hear someone in the audience like gasp at something
Yeah.
that you just said, and you're like, okay, we're all on the same page.
Mhm.
And like I did this play one time where it was a one man show and I played 16 characters.
Wow.
It's a play about a man who's being excommunicated from the LDS church because
Mm.
he
Mhm.
married another man, and he's at a
Right,
disciplinary
right.
council where there's 15, there's
Right, right.
three stake presidency and then 12 council members,
Mhm.
and he plays all of them, and they're all these men that he grew up going to church with,
Right.
and the whole play you're kind of wondering like why did he even bother showing up? Like, so I
Right.
play like the guy that's getting excommunicated, then everybody else. But the audience is like, in the back of your mind, it's like, why are you even there? Like,
Yeah.
why'd
Yeah.
you even show up for this? Like, if you know
Right.
they're just if like it doesn't seem like you care about going to church anyway. But
Right.
he goes kind of one by one through all of these characters that are there, and then he gets to the stake president, and he tells the audience, says, you know, this is the reason why I'm here is for
Right.
him. And he goes, because the stake president is my dad. And he goes, and he
Yeah.
was at my wedding and he danced with me at my wedding. And I wanted to be here for him through this.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
as I was saying that one night, I had completely forgotten that this was the night that my parents came. And
Oh.
I am looking at the audience because I'm narrating this thing. And I look up directly into the audience at my dad who's crying. And I go like, and that's my dad.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and I'm looking right at my dad,
Wow.
and, and I'm like, we're having this experience. And every single night when I would do this, I could hear the audience crying as I'm
Right.
crying. And
Right.
we're like having this connection of being like, I'm here for him because he was there
Right.
for me. And it's just like, that stuff is like, it's just, it's
Yeah.
just really powerful,
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's intangible. You can never really you can't yeah, and that's what you get with lots of art, right? You just
Yeah.
and especially shared art when you can have it. Like it can be this amazing experience. And I think, you know, so she is able Agnes is able to touch Noah Jupe and everybody else touches him. And they're at a play in a shared experience, which William Shakespeare is doing, right? So they both kind of get this they get their process out, right?
Mhm.
Like, and they never say anything to each other. William is just looking at Agnes, and she just looks back at him. And but you can tell, like, okay, things aren't perfect, but they're gonna work through this or whatever.
Yep.
Um, and then it just ends with Agnes is just kind of laughing, like
Mhm.
smiling. Oh, but they do show
They show
Hamnet.
Hamnet.
They show Hamnet because he's kind of in this like he's almost like through this veil, and
Mhm.
he's on stage and he doesn't know what to do, and he's like lost, and he's crying for his mommy, which I was just like, oh my gosh, like that.
Yeah.
It was so hard. But then they switch back to him, and he goes through the door, right?
Mhm.
Through the door on the stage, kind of almost like. And do they both look at him? Do William and
It's like
Agnes
they're
both
all
look at him?
I think so, and it's like they're
Yeah.
all moving on. It's like
Right.
everyone's going
Right.
like, "Okay." I
Yeah.
mean, not that you ever get
Yeah.
over or
Yeah.
lose the
Yeah.
grief of a child, but
No.
it's I mean, and what I love is that the film just ends. That
Yeah.
it
Yep.
doesn't have to that it just goes like, "We're
That's
gonna
all you
take you
need.
to the emotional climax of the film, and then we're
Yeah.
done."
Yeah.
And, so it
Yeah.
was a really, really beautiful ending, and
Oh, it just yeah, an amazing ending for sure.
yeah. Yep, one of a very, very powerful,
Yeah.
and one of the most powerful of the year for sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that is Hamnet. Let's get into our scores. We give scores on this show out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a technical rating for how well the film was crafted, writing, acting, directing, cinematography, musical score, all that good stuff. We give a score for the ending, which we just talked about. We give a score for rewatchability, and we give a score for cultural significance, and a score for our subjective feelings. So, Kramer, what is your technical rating for Hamnet?
My technical rating is a 9, and maybe it should be a 9.5 because everybody's bringing their A game, like the production design, the editing, which Chloe Zhao helped edit this movie, which I'm
Mhm.
always amazed at when directors can do that as well. Um, Everything is just working kind of on all cylinders. I think just taking it didn't get a perfect score for me because of those little nitpicks that we talked about. I think some of them kind of glare a little bit, but just overall an amazingly well made film overall.
Yeah, I gave it an 8.5, technically, for similar reasons. I think this is an incredibly well-made film and incredibly effective in the moments that it really counts. I
Mhm.
think yeah, I dock an extra point for some of the nitpicks that we talked about,
Yeah.
specifically because since this movie has such an emotional punch to pack,
Mhm.
uh, I think that that punch could even hit harder with some well-used restraint earlier
Mhm.
on. I
Mhm.
think that the fact that the film is so emotional throughout uh, could potentially wind up lessening the impact of that amazing ending. And sometimes it's like sometimes like I'll work with actors who have access to their like they can cry
Yeah. Yeah.
anytime they want, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's amazing that you have that, that you can like access that those tears anytime you want. I think what's really going to be effective for an audience is if you can pick the right moments to let that out.
Right.
When do
Right.
you use restraint? When do you hold it in? And when do you let it all out? And this film feels like it's letting it all out a lot.
Mhm.
And and a lot of the moments really, really work for me, but I just wonder, like, maybe what would happen if you could use a little more restraint so that some of like and pick, like, 2 or 3 big moments where it's all gonna come out,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and the movie almost does that, but I think that because of the way Chloe Zhao does it, where she's sort of just letting the actors do, feel their way through things,
Mm.
it's missing a little bit of that restraint for me.
Yeah.
Uh, how about the, ending for you?
The ending I gave a 10 just because it's so well done without holding your hand, as I've been saying the whole time. And also just the resolution is so satisfying.
Mhm.
Like, at least for me, I was just like, wow, like it all works somehow and it works perfectly for me.
I gave it a 10 as well for the exact same reasons. An ending that is all done with imagery. Everything about the ending that
Yeah.
is impactful is imagery in a story about a writer whose work was all about the words. It was
Yep.
words, 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 words.
Yep.
And this movie is just raw emotion, and
Yep.
the ending is all imagery, and it was just I mean, it's just like about as good of an ending as you could hope for from this
Yeah.
film. So,
Yeah.
yeah. How about rewatchability?
Okay, rewatchability. This is going to be a lot. I gave it a 5
Mhm.
because it's a very emotionally impacting movie, and I I enjoyed watching this movie. I don't think I will enjoy continuing to watch it just because it's so heavy, right? So this isn't a bad score. It's just that like I don't want to keep going back to it because it's so sad. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I gave it a 6 on
yeah,
rewatchability, and it's for some very similar reasons. There
yeah,
are movies that
yeah,
make me cry that I can rewatch over and over and over again.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I Past Lives is one of my favorite movies from the
Mm,
last 5 years, and
mhm.
I've seen that movie several times, and I really enjoy watching it, and I cry at the end every single time. There's certain movies that, like, I know I'm gonna cry when I watch it, but
Right.
really enjoy the process of
Yeah,
watching it,
yeah.
and I think this really illustrates sort of the nitpick that we were getting at with like some of the overindulgence of the emotion throughout,
Mhm.
because it does make the viewing experience of the film so heavy to the point that it's hard to be like, well, I'm excited to go back to that because it's
Yeah,
just so
yeah.
heavy throughout,
Right.
versus if you just have those few moments, because like Past Lives, I cry every single time, but not throughout the entire like the rest of the movie is a really like pleasant watch, and
Mhm,
then there's just this moment at the end that gets me every single time,
mhm.
and it's like picking that moment. Whereas if this movie could have found some way to make the rewatch experience
Right.
lovely throughout, and this kind of like really beautiful thing where there's a lot of things to rediscover, and then that end gets you every time,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I'd probably have a much higher rewatch score.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, as it is,
Yep,
it's like it's just sort of like a heavy movie, beginning, middle, and
yeah.
end.
Yep.
And so yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be
Yeah,
clamoring to come back
yeah,
to it. Uh,
exactly.
how about cultural impact?
Cultural impact, I'm giving an 8, and maybe it could be more. I think this is going to be a film that people go back to a lot, but well, or at least discover. I think I'm docking at some points because of the rewatchability-ness
Mhm.
of it. But I think it could win Best Picture. I think it will people will watch it and it'll be a great lesson on visual storytelling, and I
Mhm.
think it's also a great lesson on emotional storytelling. So I think this will have a big impact down the line for sure.
I gave it a 6, and you might be right. I don't know. I just was kinda like, I don't, I think you're right, that it probably will win several awards. It
Mhm.
definitely has a shot to take the biggest
Right,
ones:
right.
director, best picture,
Mhm.
actor for Buckley, actress for
Yeah.
Buckley. Um, I I just I don't know if it's going to because of the rewatchability thing that we talked about. I don't
Mhm.
know if it's going to like stay the
Yeah,
way, but
yeah,
I could be totally wrong. So that's my,
right.
that's
We'll
my
see.
feeling right now. I could be totally wrong. How about your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 9. Um, and it just I think the ending really pulls it up for me. I really think this is really well made, and it packs the punch that it wanted to, and I think the way, like we talked about, the way that it kind of shows their emotions, but also kind of the realities of, like, the motherly instinct or whatever you wanna call it. I thought it was great. So I really enjoyed this movie for those reasons.
My subjective score is an 8. Really, really enjoyed this movie. I think that the stuff that makes it a movie that I'm not anxious to rewatch, that I'm not like
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
can't wait till I
yeah,
get to see that again.
yep.
That stuff makes me go, man, I like, this is a
Big
movie that
deal.
has so many themes that I care about.
Yeah,
Themes about the importance of live storytelling, like themes about like theater and the experience of communal, view, like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, like I think that this could be a film that I would go, "Oh, I'm going to watch this for the rest of my life." And but because of some of that stuff, I just go, I feel like a lot of this film is just people sort of looking at each other and making faces. And
Yeah,
you're right that
yeah.
it's a great example of visual storytelling. But I do like really well written dialogue. Like the
Yes,
movies that I come
yes.
back to over and over and over again are movies with like really special scenes, with really
Yeah,
great exchanges. And this movie, most of the special moments are just like in looks and
yeah, yeah,
and
yep.
which I applaud the movie for, but for me subjectively,
Yeah,
it's like I'm more likely to come back to The Social Network,
yeah.
for
True.
like, like something like that,
Yeah.
uh, or again, Past Lives has a lot of exchanges that or like the Before trilogy from Richard
Mhm,
Linklater. It's all about the
mhm.
writing, it's all about the
Yeah,
dialogue, um, than I am to come back to something like this. So,
yeah,
but I still really, really like the movie and think
yeah,
that it
yeah,
deserves all the hype and all of the love that it's getting.
yeah.
What did you guys think of the film out there? Let us know in the comments. Did you cry like a baby, or were you more like Olivia thinking, I don't care about this guy and his stupid band? Let us
Yeah.
know. Up next, we are watching Avatar, Fire and Ash. So maybe you got to do a rewatch of the first two before you get to this next episode, or
You
maybe
don't.
yeah,
You
you probably don't. I have a feeling it's just going to be more of the same. But if you want to watch along with the show, that's what we'll be watching and talking about next.
Yeah.
So, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.